California has always sold the dream, but in 2025, some suburbs are starting to crack. Families are leaving, homes sit empty longer, schools shrink, malls slow down. Streets that were busy 10 years ago now feel strangely quiet. And the shift is happening fast. So here are 10 California suburbs that are slowly turning into ghost towns. 10. Antioch. Antioch sits on the far edge of the Bay Area, almost an hour from downtown San Francisco. In the 1990s and early 2000s, people moved here because homes were cheap. Back then, a family could find a 3-bedroom house for prices far lower than the rest of Contra Costa County. It was one of the last places where a regular middle-class household could buy a home without taking on heavy debt. The population grew fast during those years and new neighborhoods spread across the hills. But 2025 feels different. Antioch's population is shrinking for the first time in decades. Census estimates show that thousands of residents have moved out between 2020 and 2024. A big reason is the long commute. When job centers in Silicon Valley and San Francisco reopened after the pandemic, many workers who bought in Antioch during the remote work boom realized the daily trip to the office was too much. The 45-mile distance to downtown San Francisco can turn into a 2-hour drive during rush hour. With gas prices staying high, the commute took a toll on both time and wallets. Remote work also changed the way people think about location. Once employees learned they could work from anywhere, they started looking for cheaper states, with lower taxes and lower housing costs. Arizona, Texas, and Idaho became common destinations for families leaving Antioch. Homes that used to sell quickly now spend more time waiting for buyers, especially in older neighborhoods below the hilltops. Retail centers reflect this shift. Some of the older strip malls near Lone Tree Way and Summersville Road have more empty storefronts today. A number of businesses closed between 2022 and 2024 as foot traffic slowed. The change is easy to notice on weekday mornings. Streets that were once filled with shoppers and commuters feel much quieter. Several older blocks near the river show rising vacancies as longtime residents move out, and fewer renters take their place. Antioch is not a ghost town and still has more than 100,000 people. But the quiet pockets and empty storefronts tell a different story. The slow fade is real, and the mood of the suburb has changed. Number 9. Pacifica. Pacifica is one of the most beautiful suburbs in Northern California. Waves hit the cliffs, fog rolls in from the Pacific, and the coastline looks like something from a travel magazine. But in 2025, even this peaceful seaside town is feeling the pressure. The biggest problem is something no one can control: the ocean. Pacifica has been dealing with coastal erosion for years, but the situation became more serious in the early 2020s. Several cliffside areas were identified as high-risk zones after repeated winter storms damaged roads and weakened the bluffs. Insurance companies responded by raising premiums or refusing to renew policies in certain locations. When homeowners cannot find affordable coverage, they start thinking about moving out. The real estate market shows the impact clearly. Some waterfront streets have homes that stay on the market for months. Even houses with ocean views struggle to attract buyers because people worry about future erosion and insurance costs. Inland neighborhoods are not immune either. When risk rises across a whole coastal town, prices wobble everywhere. Buyers take their time and sellers drop their asking prices more often. Pacifica also has one of the oldest populations in San Mateo County. Many younger families prefer moving to places with more space and lower housing costs. As older residents either pass away or relocate for retirement, the town becomes quieter. Local schools feel the change in their classrooms. Several elementary schools have fewer students than they did 10 years ago, and this puts pressure on school budgets. Shops feel the slowdown too. Many local businesses close earlier in the evening because there are fewer customers walking around. Restaurants near the beach have slower weekdays compared to the past. When fewer families move in and more long-term residents move out, the daily life of the town loses some of its activity. Pacifica is not empty, and it still has beautiful scenery. But the early signs of decline are visible, and the mood of the community is different from what it was in the past. Number 8. Redding Suburbs. Redding is not a Bay Area suburb in the traditional sense, but the neighborhoods on the far edges of the city work just like classic suburbs. For years, families moved here because they wanted bigger backyards, quiet streets, and prices that were much lower than anything near Sacramento or the coast. A lot of these homes were built in the late 1990s and early 2000s, during a period when Shasta County saw one of its fastest population jumps. But 2025 has put real pressure on these outer ring areas. Wildfires are the biggest reason the suburbs are emptying out. The region has lived through major fire seasons in 2017, 2018, 2020, and 2021. Even though not every house burned, the stress never went away. Some families reached a point where they could no longer deal with the yearly drill of packing cars, checking alerts, and waiting for evacuation orders. After the car fire burned more than 1,000 homes back in 2018, many of the empty lots were never rebuilt. Insurance became another crushing hit. Rates in high-risk zones rose sharply between 2022 and 2025. Some homeowners started paying several $1,000s each year just to keep their policy. Others were dropped and had to buy expensive state-backed coverage. For many working-class families, the numbers did not make sense anymore. A growing share of them sold their homes or simply moved away before another fire season arrived. The job situation made things harder. Redding's economy has stayed mostly service-based, and wages have not risen much. Younger adults often leave for better pay in places like Sacramento, Reno, or Portland. As they left, fewer children filled local schools, and some classrooms on the outskirts shrank year after year. The population in these suburbs slowly shifted older, and the energy that once defined these areas began fading. Number 7. Lancaster Suburbs. Lancaster built its reputation on affordability. For decades, it was the go-to place for families priced out of Los Angeles. People came here for bigger homes, wide streets, and monthly payments that felt manageable. But in 2025, that same affordability exposed deeper cracks that had been forming for years. The distance is the first major problem. Lancaster sits more than 70 miles from downtown Los Angeles, and many people underestimated how draining that was. When gas prices rose again in 2024 and 2025, the cost of commuting jumped sharply. Some workers spent over $400 a month just on fuel. When companies began pulling remote workers back into offices, the 3-hour daily drive returned, and families who once thought they could handle it suddenly realized they could not. Then came the heat. Lancaster is located in the Antelope Valley, a place known for summer temperatures that often pass 100 degrees. In 2023 and 2024, the area recorded several long heat waves that pushed electricity bills higher than ever. Older houses with aging air conditioning systems struggled the most. Many families started paying more in cooling costs than they ever expected, and some decided it was smarter to leave than to keep fighting the climate. Vacancy added another layer of trouble. On the far edges of the city, there are neighborhoods where many homes no longer feel lived in. They are not abandoned, but they sit empty for long stretches. A lot of owners moved away during the pandemic years and kept their houses as rentals. But as rental demand slowed in 2024 and 2025, more of these houses stopped getting tenants. You can drive through certain streets and see property after property with nothing but closed blinds and unused driveways. Number 6. Oxnard's eastern suburbs. Oxnard is known for sunny beaches and long stretches of strawberry fields, but the eastern suburbs tell a much heavier story in 2025. These neighborhoods were once steady middle-class areas with modest homes built through the 1970s and 1980s. Families liked the mix of farmland and quiet streets, but the last few years flipped the script. Insurance problems hit harder here than most people expected. After the winter storms of 2023 and 2024 damaged parts of Ventura County, insurance companies began pulling out. Some homeowners saw their rates jump by thousands of dollars in a single renewal cycle. Others were dropped outright. When a neighborhood gets flagged as risky, banks tighten their rules. Buyers cannot get loans unless they accept pricey insurance plans, and sellers are forced to lower their prices. Even homeowners who never filed a claim felt the blow because the label alone pushes values down. The area around East Gonzales Road tells the story clearly. Houses that once sold within 30 days now stay on the market for 2 or 3 months. Streets that were usually busy with workers heading to the farms or kids walking home from school feel more spaced out. Repair costs after the storms also pushed many families to leave. A handful of homes that needed roof or foundation work were left in limbo when owners decided they simply could not take on the financial hit. Agricultural changes made things worse. Some of the farming companies that have been in Oxnard for decades reduced operations after higher labor costs and water restrictions. When seasonal jobs shrink, local rental demand drops. Several small apartment buildings near the eastern edge of the city now have multiple empty units, something that was rare 5 years ago. Stores in the area have reported fewer customers, and even weekend traffic feels lighter. Oxnard as a whole is still alive, and the coastline areas still draw people in. But these eastern suburbs carry a quieter atmosphere. You can feel a slow weakening, as if the community is losing pieces of itself one move out at a time. Number 5. Fremont Suburbs. Fremont used to be one of Silicon Valley's most stable suburban zones. Families stretched their budgets to live here because they wanted to be close to Tesla, nearby chip manufacturers, and the tech campuses scattered across the South Bay. For years, houses in Fremont were out of reach for most buyers, with prices jumping above $1 million again and again. But by 2025, the tone changed. The tech slowdown of 2023 and 2024 left a dent that still shows. Layoffs at multiple firms pushed thousands of workers out of the region. Others switched to remote jobs that did not require them to stay anywhere near the Bay Area. Once people realized they could live in a cheaper state while earning the same salary, many left without hesitation. Fremont's sky-high mortgages made it an easy decision. The Ardenwood area and the neighborhoods closer to Union City show the clearest decline. Homes that once pulled in 10 or more offers now sit for weeks. Some price cuts reach into the tens of thousands. Even newly built townhouses that used to sell above listing prices now advertise reductions month after month. The rental market changed too. Luxury apartment buildings built between 2015 and 2020 once bragged about waiting lists. Now they offer discounts to fill units. Fremont itself is still wealthy, and it is far from collapsing, but there is a visible emptiness in the edges of the city. Number 4. Elk Grove. Elk Grove grew at a stunning pace through the 2000s and early 2000s. Thousands of families moved here for newer homes, large parks, and schools with strong reputations. The population passed 170,000 by the early 2020s. For a long time, Elk Grove was seen as the perfect balance between affordability and comfort. But 2025 tells a different story. The cost of living rose faster than local earnings. Sacramento's job market has not kept up with rising prices for housing, groceries, or utilities. Families who thought Elk Grove offered stability now feel stretched. When you combine higher mortgage rates with rising everyday expenses, the pressure builds quickly. Housing turnover is also slowing down. In neighborhoods built between 2017 and 2021, more homes are sitting with "for sale" signs that stay up longer than before. Some owners moved out of California entirely, heading to states like Texas or Idaho. Their homes often turn into rentals, but high suburban rent prices keep many of those rentals empty. A quiet street with multiple empty houses slowly loses its energy, and that has already started happening here. Number 3. Palmdale. Palmdale sits right next to Lancaster, but its problems hit harder and reach deeper. It is one of the few suburbs in Los Angeles County that grew fast during the 1990s and 2000s, with thousands of people moving in for cheaper housing. But in 2025, the same factors that once attracted families now push them away. Water scarcity is the biggest issue. This part of the Antelope Valley has gone through one drought cycle after another. The city depends heavily on imported water from the State Water Project. When supply drops, strict rules come back, and residents are told to cut down outdoor watering to only a couple of days a week. Many homeowners simply give up on maintaining their yards. Some streets have front lawns that turned brown years ago and never recovered. A few neighborhoods on the eastern side look worn down because families cannot afford to replace landscaping that died during earlier droughts. The heat makes everything harder. Palmdale has some of the highest summer temperatures in Southern California. Days above 100 degrees are normal. Older houses built before modern energy standards struggle to stay cool, and families pay large electric bills during peak heat months. When heat waves hit, the power grid becomes unstable. Rolling outages and equipment failures frustrate people who already feel stretched thin. For elderly residents, the heat is even more dangerous, which is one reason many retirees eventually leave for cooler states. Job growth has also slowed. For years, Palmdale hoped aerospace and manufacturing would bring steady employment, but many of those jobs shifted to other locations. Younger adults often move to Los Angeles or out of California to find better wages. As they leave, the population ages, and the city loses energy and long-term stability. Several areas in the northern and eastern parts of town show clear signs of change. More homes have boarded windows or overgrown yards. A few shopping centers have lost important stores, and only small businesses remain. These signs are small on their own, but together they show a suburb struggling to hold on to the future it once imagined. Number 2. Stockton Suburbs. Stockton has dealt with financial trouble for years, but the outer suburbs, especially the areas near Lathrop, are now feeling the weight of that history. These neighborhoods were built with hope. Builders expected thousands of families to move in and turn the area into a thriving community. But by 2025, many of those plans slowed or stalled. Crime perception is one of the main reasons. Even though not every part of Stockton is unsafe, the city's long-standing reputation affects surrounding areas. Families often choose where to live based on how safe they feel, not just on official statistics. When a city carries a troubled image, the suburbs lose potential buyers who do not want to take a chance. In 2025, many families chose nearby cities instead of Stockton's edge, and this shift left a noticeable gap. New housing projects that once sold quickly now sit unfinished. Developers slowed construction after sales dropped. It is not uncommon to see rows of brand new houses with only 2 or 3 occupied. Streets that were planned for full communities look oddly empty. A few homes have been staged for months without buyers stepping in. Debt is another silent problem. During the low-interest boom in 2020 and 2021, many people stretched their finances to buy homes. Adjustable-rate mortgages that seemed safe then became risky later. When rates increased, monthly payments jumped. Families who could not keep up decided to leave, often moving out of California entirely. Some left homes vacant after failing to find buyers who could afford the new payment levels. These factors create pockets of quiet throughout the suburbs. Number 1. Salton City. Salton City is one of the most unusual suburbs in California. It sits along the edge of the Salton Sea, a place that once had a bright future. In the 1950s and 1960s, the area was promoted as a luxury destination. Developers built roads, laid out huge neighborhoods, and planned a community that would rival some of the state's most popular desert towns. But everything changed when the lake changed. Over the years, the Salton Sea became saltier because water stopped flowing into it at the same rate. Farm runoff added chemicals. Wildlife began to disappear. Fish died in large numbers. The air around the lake started carrying a strong smell during the hot months. As the shoreline dried, dust clouds formed. Some of that dust contained chemicals and fine particles that were unsafe to breathe. By 2025, these environmental problems reshaped Salton City completely. Population density is extremely low compared to how the land was designed. Some blocks have only a handful of residents. Businesses struggle because there are not enough customers to keep stores open. A handful of gas stations, small markets, and local shops remain, but many other businesses have left after years of slow sales. Walking through Salton City shows how far the decline has gone. Some homes look lived in and well kept, but others show broken windows, old fences, or signs of long-term vacancy. Even during the daytime, it feels unusually quiet for a place with so many streets and so much open land.